Hi, my name is Nicole. Welcome to my channel, Travel to Money. In this video, I'll explain what it means to own a vacation rental in Spain, the steps you have to take to be legal, and what to expect with taxes. If you are new here, I have created this channel to help you learn about how to travel, adventure, and have fun on the road to financial independence. I have spent the last few years traveling the world. I paid off a house in Spain, plus I have worked smarter and harder to help me move toward financial independence. I believe that the road to financial freedom can and should be fun. I hope that you'll subscribe and join me on this journey no matter where you are starting from. So let's jump in. At the time that I purchased my home in Spain, I was already renting out my Florida home on both Airbnb and HomeAway, also known as VRBO. Just like the money I have invested in the stock market, I also want the money I have invested in real estate to be working for me. I had done a little bit of online research, and after looking at Airbnb, I was able to easily set up my house as a rental. What I didn't do was enough research about the taxes and how I would need to report that. I would like to remind everyone that I am not a financial advisor, nor am I a tax expert. What I am, though, is someone who made some mistakes and had to pay for it. So I at least have the experience of telling you what not to do. Now, vacation rentals through sites like Airbnb and HomeAway are still relatively new, and the governments are still in process of figuring out how to get their share of the pie. This is one thing that sometimes makes me nervous about owning a vacation rental. You never know exactly how the government will respond and what kind of restrictions they might impose. Before you start a vacation rental anywhere, find out what the laws are. So I bought my home in March of 2018, and by the 1st of June, I had my first renters in the house. The street I live on in Spain isn't the greatest, so I have to rent at a lower rate than most places, and I have to understand that my bookings won't be quite as frequent. At my home in Florida, I could count on a minimum of an 80% occupancy rate, when in reality, it usually was around 92%. In Spain, I was only counting on about 50% occupancy rate just because of where the house was located. This was fine with me because I bought the house more for myself than I did for being a rental. The rental was just going to be an extra stream of income. Anyhow, I rented out the house for several quarters that year. Toward the end of the year, I ended up being directed by Airbnb to register the house with the authorities in Spain. This was due to a new regulation that stated that any short-term rental property in Spain would need a registration number, would need something posted on the outer door of the house, and would have to be on the Airbnb listing as well. Since I was no longer in Spain, I had to remove the listing. My listings there weren't going as well anyway, so I just took them down. Then I learned about the tax mistake I made. It didn't cost me much in fees, but it would have been better to know in advance. I was assuming that I would pay taxes on the property at the end of the year. It turns out that when you are a non-resident who is running your property as a vacation rental, you have to report and pay taxes once per quarter. Yes, a bit more complicated. Plus, you don't get the deductions from your rental that you might in the US. So I think it's important for us to touch on the numbers here for a minute. Doing this math will help you determine if this is a good investment opportunity. Let's say you are going to rent your house out for $50 per night. This might be the amount that you rent your apartment or small townhouse for. That comes to $1,500 per month if the house is rented out for 30 nights in a month. Now, if you are only assuming a 50% occupancy rate, then that means just $750 per month on average. Then if you are paying 25% of that in taxes, that takes your profit down to $562.50. It also costs about $100 to have the accountant file those taxes each quarter. So now you're down to $529.17. Then on top of that, you'll have to pay the utilities. In my experience, you should expect to pay higher utilities than when you live in a house because your guests don't care about keeping the electricity or water bills low. In this particular house, I should expect to pay $200 in utilities. This has now dwindled the profit down to $329.17. Now, there are a lot of variables. You have to consider the maintenance costs of the house. Remember the sewage problem I talked about in the last video? Yeah, well, some of my guests ignored what I said about not flushing feminine products down the toilet, and it cost me $200 to fix it. Another variable. If you live in the house during a non-touristy season and then rent it out during peak seasons, you may be able to charge more per night and you will likely have a higher booking frequency. In Florida, every season is a tourist season, but in Spain, winter is really slow, but spring and summer are really busy. Now, if you buy in a big city like Valencia, Madrid, or Barcelona, you will likely have a higher booking frequency. If you're like me, I prefer if a guest books for at least a week, and even better if they book for a month. It means you don't have to turn over the house very often. Because of this, many vacation rental hosts offer a weekly discount and then an even bigger monthly discount to attract people for longer stays. It's great, but just another factor you have to consider when looking at your profit. Now, when I'm running numbers, I always want to be conservative. For example, you never want to make your decisions based on what you might be able to make at maximum. You have to figure out if it's good for you to do if you're only making the minimum. Now, in the example of my house, once I realized the costs, having to report taxes quarterly, not even being in Spain to get the house registered, I decided to take the listing down for a while. Even if I was making a small profit or $200 or $300 per month, it wasn't necessarily worth the hassle and the amount of time I was having to put into it. Do I think you can make good money running a vacation rental in Spain? Absolutely. But like Christy Shen from Quit Like a Millionaire says, you have to math stuff up. She actually uses a different word in the middle, but I want my videos to be family friendly. Now, I want to run quickly through some of the requirements to get that official registration in Spain. Remember that laws are subject to change, so always do research about current laws. Another thing to note is that different regions may have slightly different laws, so you also want to check your local laws. The registration that you're looking to obtain is referred to as a tourist license. You are submitting information that shows you are the owner of the property and you are confirming that the property meets certain requirements. After you receive the license, you have to get public liability insurance, usually a few $100s per year. You must have a complaints and information book, which is required at any registered business and is common throughout Europe. And you have to identify each of the travelers and register them with the police. Anyone over the age of 16 has to be registered. This is another common practice throughout Europe. I've stayed in Airbnb rentals all around Europe, and it is common for the property manager to meet me and take passport information from each of the guests to register them with the police. Honestly, it's a much more strict process than we have in the US. If you are hiring a property manager to turn over the houses if you live out of the country, then this is one of the things they would be responsible for managing. Hopefully, I haven't successfully scared you away from owning a vacation property in Spain. There can definitely be benefits if the price of the property is right and if you do the math and can see the profits rolling in. I just want you to be prepared for the reality of what that looks like. In the next video, I'm going to explain what you have to do if your passport is stolen while you're in Spain. Unfortunately, I had that happen to me. If you have learned something here today, please find that like button and subscribe to join me on this adventure. I can't wait to see where your dreams will take you.